Jesus said to them, "You will all falter in your faithfulness to me. It is written, I will hit the shepherd and the sheep will go off in all directions. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even if everyone else stumbles, I won't." But Jesus said to him, "I assure you that on this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." But Peter insisted, "If I must die alongside you, I will not deny you." And they all said the same thing. Jesus and his disciples came to a place called Gethsemane. Jesus said to them, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James, and John along with him. He began to feel despair. He was anxious. He said to them, "I am so sad. It's as if I am dying. Stay here. Stay alert." Then he went a short distance further and fell to the ground. He prayed that, if possible, he might be spared from his time of suffering. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Take this cup of suffering away from me. However, not what I want, but what you want." Jesus came and found his disciples sleeping. He said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Couldn't you stay awake for 1 hour? Stay alert and pray so you will not give in to temptation. The spirit is eager, the flesh is weak." Again, Jesus left them and prayed, repeating the same words. And again, when he came back, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open, and they didn't know how to respond to him. He came a 3rd time and said to them, "Will you sleep and rest all night? That's enough. The time has come for the human one to be betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up. Look, let's go. Here comes my betrayer." Suddenly, while Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, came with a mob carrying swords and clubs. They had been sent by the chief priests, legal experts, and elders of the people. His betrayers had given them a sign: "Arrest the man that I kiss and take him away under guard." As soon as he got there, Judas said to Jesus, "Rabbi." Then he kissed him. Then they came and grabbed Jesus and arrested him. One of the bystanders threw a sword and struck the high priest's slave and cut off his ear. Jesus responded, "Have you come with swords and clubs to arrest me like an outlaw? Day after day I was with you teaching in the temple, but you didn't arrest me. So let the scriptures be fulfilled. All his disciples left him and ran away. One young man, a disciple, was wearing nothing but a linen cloth. They grabbed him, but he left the linen cloth behind and ran away naked. They led Jesus away to the high priest, and all the chief priests, elders, and legal experts were gathered. Peter followed from a distance right into the high priest's courtyard. He was sitting with the guards, warming himself by the fire. The chief priests and the whole of the council were looking for testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they couldn't find him. Many brought false testimony against him, but they contradicted each other. Some stood to offer false witness against him, saying, "We heard him saying, 'I will destroy this temple constructed by humans, and within 3 days I will build another, one not made by humans.'" But their testimonies didn't agree even on this point. Then the high priest stood up in the middle of the gathering and examined Jesus. "Aren't you going to respond to the testimony these people have brought against you?" But Jesus was silent and didn't answer. Again the high priest asked, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" And Jesus said, "I am. You will see the human one sitting at the right side of the Almighty and coming on heavenly clouds." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "Why do we need any more witnesses? You've heard his insult against God. What do you think?" They all condemned him. "He deserves to die." Some began to spit on him. Some covered his face and hit him, saying, "Prophesy." Then the guards took him and beat him. Meanwhile, Peter was below in the courtyard. A woman, a servant of the high priest, approached and saw Peter warming himself by the fire. She stared at him and said, "You were also with the Nazarene Jesus." But Peter denied it, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand what you're saying." Peter went out into the outer courtyard. A rooster crowed. The female servant saw him and began a second time to say to those standing around, "This man is one of them." But Peter denied it again. A short time later, those standing around again said to Peter, "You must be one of them, because you are also a Galilean." But Peter cursed and swore, "I don't know this man you're talking about." At that very moment, a rooster crowed a second time. Peter remembered what Jesus told him, Before a rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And Peter broke down, sobbing. This story, about halfway through, of Jesus' last night, begins with yesterday's story of Jesus gathering with his disciples and instructing them to love one another. He gives a long farewell address, reminding them of everything he's taught and everything we're supposed to do. And these Jesus' first followers had been with him had seen him perform miracles, had heard his teaching firsthand, had seen his acts of power and his signs of wonder. And yet, Peter denies him 3 times, Judas betrays him, James and John fall asleep as he asks them to stay watch. The Gospel of Mark records the disciples, not just here but at other times, making mistakes. That even when it seems like everything should be as clear as it could be, that everything Jesus has been saying is coming true, they can see it happening, they've known the stories, they followed this man for years, firsthand. Still, they make mistakes. They aren't there with their friend when he needs them. And the Gospel of Mark records that story, records the mistakes that Jesus' followers did. And it does that for a reason. It does that on purpose, to remind us that we're going to make mistakes too. That there will be moments when Jesus will have asked something of us, sometimes something small, and sometimes something incredible, and where we will have made a mistake along the way. The Gospel of Mark also doesn't say that the disciples stopped being Jesus' followers. It doesn't judge them, but it tells and records their story, their highs and their lows, of their good times and their bad, to remind us that we are people, and people don't always get it right. Jesus refers to himself as the human one. And this recalls a tradition in his faith and in the scriptures that a human being, would come and would be the sign of God's intention to make all things new. There is many images for God's promised one. A human one, emphasizing that this person would be a human being, like you and me. We read from Isaiah of God's servant, the suffering servant, who would do incredible things, and who would bear horrible punishment, that by his wounds we would be healed. And so Jesus becomes a human being that every part of human life, every part, the good parts, we have stories of Jesus having meals with his friends. People accuse him of celebrating too much. They say the promised one, the human one, becomes eating and drinking, he says, when people suggest that he's having too many parties with the wrong kind of people. Jesus fiercely loves his mother, recorded in the Gospel of John, making sure that she would be taken care of when he passed away. Jesus knew all of the best parts of human life. And we hear he knew the worst ones too. He was betrayed by his friends. He was abandoned in a time of need. In a moment we'll hear that he died. He was tortured and he died. He was beaten. He was unjustly accused in an unfair legal system. Every of the worst parts of what humans could do to each other, we did to Jesus. And we hear him saying, God, if I can take this from me, but not what I want, but what you want. He prays desperately that there would be another way. But he's obedient even to the point of death to what God has asked him to do. To be willing to endure our punishments, to endure our afflictions, to bear our sickness, that by his wounds we might be healed. And so as his followers today, we follow a human being, the only perfect human being, and we hear a story that how his followers are imperfect, like we are. It's not an excuse, but it is the truth of what it is to be human for us. That only Jesus lived a perfect life as a human being. Only Jesus was flawless and without sin. That's why Jesus had to be the one to do what he did. And then he invites us, and through what he does, we'll read in the next chapters, what he does enables us to live a different kind of life. What he does for us on the cross invites us to then go and to do the same, to be willing to give up our lives, humbly offering our lives to the world around us, to love one another, as he instructed his disciples on his last night, to love one another. At daybreak, the chief priests, the elders, the legal experts, and the whole council formed a plan. They bound Jesus, led him away, and turned him over to Pilate, the governor. Pilate questioned him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus replied, "That's what you say." The chief priests were accusing him of many things. Pilate asked him again, "Aren't you going to answer? What about all these accusations?" But Jesus gave no more answers, so that Pilate was marveled. During the festival, Pilate released one prisoner to them, whomever they requested. A man named Barabbas was locked up with the rebels who committed murder during an uprising. The crowd pushed forward and asked Pilate to release someone, as he regularly did. Pilate answered them, "Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" He knew the chief priests had handed him over because of jealousy, but the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas to them instead. Pilate replied, "Then what do you want me to do with the one that you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Why? What wrong has he done?" So they shouted even louder, "Crucify him." Pilate wanted to satisfy the crowd, so he released Barabbas to them. He had Jesus whipped, then handed him over to be crucified.
and know that I am God. I am exalted in the nations and the earth. Be still and know that I am God.
The soldiers led Jesus away into the courtyard of the palace known as the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole company of soldiers. They dressed him up in a purple robe and twisted together a crown of thorns and forced it on his head. They saluted him, saying, "Hey, King of the Jews!" Again and again they struck his head with a stick. They spat on him and knelt before him so as to honor him. When they finished mocking him, they stripped him of the purple robe and put his clothes back on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. Simon, a man from Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was coming in from the countryside. They forced Simon to carry Jesus' cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. They tried to give him wine mixed with myrrh, but he didn't take it. They crucified him. They divided up his clothes, drawing lots for them to determine who would take what. It was 9 in the morning when they crucified him. The notice of the formal charge against him was written, "The King of the Jews." They crucified 2 rebels with him, one on his right and one on his left. People walked by and insulted him, shaking their heads and saying, "Ha, so you were going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, were you? Save yourself and come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests were making fun of him amongst themselves, together with the legal experts. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down from the cross. Then we'll see and believe." Even those who had been crucified with Jesus insulted him. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, the whole earth was dark. And at 3, Jesus cried out with a loud shout, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you abandoned me?" After hearing him, some standing there said, "Look, he's calling for Elijah." Someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, and put it on a pole. He had offered it to Jesus to drink, saying, "Let's see if Elijah will come to take him." But Jesus let out a loud cry and died.